My topic for today has given me the chance to look for needles in haystacks, principally because I didn't have a metal detector that would pick up needles in haystacks, but I've had a lot of fun doing it.
Where did the dollar sign come from? We see and use it so often that we don't often stop to think about its origin. There are plenty of popularized theories. Some people believe it was a stylization of the letters U and S, while others think it came from the pillar design on the reverse of Mexican 8 reales that circulated in colonial America. Eric Newman wasn't satisfied by these unproven theories and did significant research into the subject in 1991, proving how the dollar sign originated. As it happened, the term dollar was introduced and printed on paper money before the dollar sign came about. In colonial Maryland, they dealt with multiple currencies that were accepted, and when they went to print new paper money in 1767, were burdened by an excessively complicated system. As a compromise to find a unit that was both functional and legal, they printed bills in Spanish dollar denominations, shortened to read $1. This was very accessible to the public, as Spanish pesos were the most common unit used in trade. Spain owned the land west of the Mississippi after 1763, meaning a lot of Spanish terms found their way into the American vocabulary. There wasn't a set symbol for pesos when writing an amount, so people took to abbreviating it as PS, or occasionally PSO. Over time, the PS abbreviation evolved into more of a flourish than clear letters. Gradually, people began to leave the top off of the P, and the S began to overlap, starting to transform into something recognizable as a dollar sign. The first written examples of a symbol suggesting the dollar sign were found in a New Orleans letter book from the 1760s.
So a letter book is when you write a commercial letter, as you know, you write the letter and send off the original. There were no mechanisms for copying that letter at that time that were sufficient to transfer it. There are a number of ways of transferring, but at least in Louisiana and the crude parts of America, you employed a scribe to copy your letter onto your letter book so that you knew what you said to the other fella and wrote him. So this letter book has a number of different scribes in it. And so we can't be handwriting experts and determine which scribes were writing which ones, but the man who wrote the letter wasn't the one who was the sender and the composer of the letter, and so we have that interesting problem. So here on the right are the various forms in which the scribes are beginning to shortcut the dollar sign. Now you notice beginning at the top how simple the S now becomes with a stripe, and as you work your way down, they're writing it faster and faster as they have more numbers, and this group of scribes were just putting two lines up and down with some kind of a stroke across it. And these are the earliest dollar signs we have ever been able to find in America.
This symbol was not yet standardized. It frequently varied, even within a single document written by one person, and it sometimes appeared after the number instead of before. By 1776, the general form was known and used in New York, as demonstrated in the diary of Ezra Loomdio from the 1776 session of the Provincial Council of New York. The exact form varied, but it was clear that he was somewhat familiar with the symbol. It continued to spread and was found more often going into the 1780s.
Now we have a typical Oliver Pollock piece of 1780. This is in his handwriting, and you will notice that this is the 6146 is a large P with a wiggle sort of an S at the right-hand top. So that was the way he really wrote it, and fortunately we've been able to find one of his letters in his own writing. Now, how were other people writing at this time? They were beginning to keep books and write letters to collect money, and on the left you will see several dollar signs, and in these cases the They're now abandoning the top loop of the P. They are having a downstroke for the P and an upstroke, and then swinging right into the S immediately. There are 3 of those on the left-hand portion, each a little different. Again, these are by scribes. And now I've enlarged it over here, and you can see these strokes with a loop at the bottom of the P and an S on top of it, looking very much like a dollar sign.
Plenty of other handwritten examples have been found throughout the 1770s and 80s, varying widely in their similarity to the modern dollar sign. As they slowly became more standardized, it was only a matter of time before the dollar sign began to appear in printed books. It's known that the dollar sign was used in print by 1802, but it was clear that this wasn't the first example of a typeset dollar sign. An unusual version of the dollar sign appeared in Chauncey Lee's 1797 American Accomptant. Newman acquired a copy of this work in 1987 and was inspired to create a related verse, which appeared in the 1988 winter issue of The Asylum. The American Accomptant by Chauncey Lee at a George Colby auction was acquired by me. Its condition was choice for its 1797 date, and unfolding turned corners a welcome fate. The first printed dollar sign was its principal feature, and its money exchange tables a valuable teacher. Its only plate of coins is a gem indeed, done by New York banknote engraver Abner Reed. I will give its numismatic content many more looks, now that it's one of my favorite books. While Newman initially thought the American Accomptant might represent the first printed use of the dollar sign, he later revised his opinion, noting the curved lines are not explicitly an S. Newman instead posited that the pamphlet about the renewal of a bank charter from 1799 was the first printed example of a recognizable dollar sign.
The little pamphlet printed for the renewal of the Bank of North America by the state of Pennsylvania for their charter, and it was undated. But it said that, please, the Bank of North America is a wonderful organization and should therefore have its charter renewed. And so I found out when its charter was going to be renewed. That was needed for 1801. I found out that the legislature had to do this beforehand, and then in due course, I learned that where was the capital of Pennsylvania in the early period, and I find it's 1799. It had moved to Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It had not gotten from Philadelphia to Harrisburg. So Philadelphia was the first capital, Lancaster the second, and Harrisburg the third. Who was the printer? A gentleman in Lancaster. And then I found a similar print of the same item in Harrisburg. So the politicians of were being handled beautifully. There was a newspaper published in Lancaster, a newspaper in Harrisburg. The boys at the Bank of North America wanted both parts of Pennsylvania to vote for the renewal of the charter. Therefore, they had 2 separate printers print the identical thing, and those printers bought apparently the first of the dollar signs for printing. And so they used them, and you see them as they were used in the application.
By 1802, the government was using the dollar sign as well, but it was far from standardized until checks were formatted. That was the impetus that brought about a consensus on where the dollar sign should be placed and precisely what form it would take. It's easy to take such a simple symbol for granted in modern society, but there was a lot of confusion in the early days. No one seemed able to agree on how exactly it would be used, or even exactly what it would look like. But a few decades of uncertainty brought the dollar sign from an obscure flourish to the common symbol we all know, and we have Eric Newman to thank for bringing its true origins to light.